Hey everyone, Theo here. This is my artist review of the Microsoft Surface Pro 11 released in 2024. First of all, a disclaimer, this is a review unit on loan from Microsoft Singapore, and in this video I'll just present to you my findings so that you can decide whether this is worth the money. My review is a bit late because here in Singapore, Microsoft Surface products are released months later. So this particular review unit that I have comes with the Snapdragon X Elite, which has 12 cores, and it comes with 16 gigs of RAM, 512 gigs of storage, and this particular model comes with the OLED display. The prices for the Surface Pro 11 here in Singapore starts at 1,599 Singapore dollars for the model with Snapdragon X Plus 10-core processor with the LCD display. If you feel like you want the better processor and the OLED display, the price is significantly higher at 2,348 Singapore dollars. And these do not come with the keyboard cover and the Microsoft Slim Pen 2. So in USA, if I remember correctly, this is $999 US dollars, and the OLED model is about 1,500 or 1,600 US dollars. Alright, let me give you a quick intro as to what I will cover in my review. Since Microsoft is making a more serious effort to transition from Intel to ARM or ARM processors, I will be talking about app compatibility, more specifically whether the graphic design and the drawing apps will work well with this new Snapdragon processor. And obviously I will talk about the design and the hardware, and also give you my thoughts on whether this is worth the money as an all-in-one device for drawing purposes. Having said all that, let me give you the bottom line. So this year, the hardware for the Microsoft Surface Pro 11 is fantastic thanks to the Snapdragon processor. This tablet still looks great, the build quality is solid, and it feels really premium. So my main issue with the previous models is battery life, which is usually around 6 to 8 hours, and it's usually on the lower side. So with this model, you can easily get 12 to 15 hours. And if you're drawing, if you're maxing out the brightness, maybe you can get 8 to 10 or 12 hours, which is still significantly better compared to the previous model. So that is a significant improvement. Port selection is still not ideal. There are two USB 4 ports on this side, and on the other side is the Surface connector, which I don't find very useful. This tablet can be charged using the Microsoft Surface Connect port on this side or the two USB-C ports. Now, if Microsoft had replaced this with another USB-C port or even with a SD card reader, that to me is just more useful. So with this Surface Connect port, you can only use this with their charger or with their Surface Connect dock for extra ports. But if this is USB-C, you can use it with a lot more devices. The keyboard and pen are sold separately, and I will talk more about them later on. The most important thing you need to know about the keyboard and pen is there are several models for this keyboard, and the keyboard may or may not come with the pen, so make sure you buy the correct combo. If you look at the Windows Task Manager, you can see which apps are still running on the old x64 architecture, such as Clip Studio Paint, Krita, and there is Minibank Paint Pro, and which apps have been updated to run on the ARM architecture. We have Photoshop, Creative Cloud, and there is Concepts. Not all the graphic design apps from Adobe have been updated to run on ARM. For example, if you want to use Adobe Illustrator, It is not available yet, as in you cannot even install Adobe Illustrator because you cannot install it from the Creative Cloud, as the option to install is not there. Now, I have tested several of these drawing apps and they work well even if they are running on emulation. So that's pretty good. When I tested the Surface Laptop, I wasn't able to get the Huion driver to work with the laptop, so I wasn't able to use my pen tablet or pen display with the Surface Laptop. But you don't have to worry about that with the Surface Pro because this tablet has pen support, so you don't need another device to draw on this tablet. And speaking of drawing, unfortunately the drawing performance of the Surface Slim Pen 2 is not perfect. The pen has low initial activation force, so you can draw thin lines quite easily even with a thick brush selected. However, there is slight diagonal line wobble or jitter, and sometimes I find it a bit difficult to maintain consistent pressure, but here it works fine with Clip Studio Paint, and you can see the slight diagonal line wobble and jitter. And there are issues with line taper. For CSP, there is the shoelace effect, and even without the shoelace effect, it doesn't taper smoothly and sharply, so that is the limitation with this pen. The Microsoft Slim Pen 2 is great for writing. However, for drawing, you really need to know its limitation. For example, when you're drawing hair and you want the hair to taper as you lift your pen, the taper just does not look right with many drawing apps. So with Concepts, you can see the shoelace effect as well. When I draw hair like this, I want the hair to taper smoothly and sharply, and I cannot do that with this pen. So this is just one of the limitations, and of course the other limitation is the diagonal line wobble. The general performance of this tablet is fast and lag-free. So the Surface Pro tablets and the Surface laptops, they all start with 16 gigs of RAM, which is great for multitasking. And because of the 120 Hz refresh rate, everything just looks and feels really smooth and fast. So the performance is good. It can be used for some gaming as well, provided your game is compatible with ARM. Right, the bottom line is this. If you are an artist or graphic designer, before you buy the Surface Pro, do some research first to make sure that the app that you need to use can run on ARM. For example, Adobe Illustrator is not available for installation, and if you use Adobe Premiere Pro, it's the 2023 version with bugs, so the 2024 version is not available yet. Anyway, this tablet is not the ideal device for editing videos. And also, if you are going to use the tablet for drawing, just note the limitations, the drawing performance limitations with the Microsoft Slim Pen 2. Now, in terms of value for money, this tablet is selling at the same price as the Surface laptop, which comes with the keyboard. But for the Surface Pro, you have to buy the keyboard and pen separately. So the overall cost of this all-in-one device is noticeably higher compared to the Surface laptop. There are many considerations you have to take into account before you buy into the new Surface Pro and Surface laptops. Alright, on to the main review. Let's look at the design. The Microsoft Surface Pro 11 only comes in one size, which is this 13-inch size. And the build quality is really solid. The back is made with metal and the front is almost all glass. I cannot remember the weight, but someone told me the weight listed on their website is not accurate. Anyway, the weight for this tablet feels good for a 13-inch tablet. It's not that heavy, and even if you add the keyboard cover, it's still not that heavy, which is to say that this is very portable. The corners are rounded off, and the corners for the display are rounded off as well. The bezels are thin on left and right sides, thicker at the top and bottom. And there is this camera here, which can be used for face unlock, which works quite fast and effectively. So this review unit that I have here comes with the OLED display, which looks really good, but there are some issues which I will talk about later. So the back has one camera, and that's the Microsoft logo there, which is really shiny. And this is the kickstand, and when you open up the kickstand, there is this plate here. You can easily pop open this plate, which is attached magnetically, to access the internal SSD, which is replaceable. This is the 2230 NVMe SSD. So if you want to, you can actually upgrade the storage yourself. However, RAM is not user upgradable. The hinge for the kickstand is quite stiff and it looks durable enough. However, the hinge is not stiff or strong enough for you to press down on the tablet while drawing. So if you want to prop up the tablet at an angle for a more comfortable drawing position or angle, you have to get a laptop stand or a tablet stand. Some of the Surface Pros that I have reviewed a few years ago actually come with the micro SD card slot, but it's not available here. Oh, by the way, if you want 5G, there are 5G versions of this tablet in certain countries. This is the bottom of the tablet, and this too will snap to the keyboard. So this tablet is actually quite thin, and you can see the sides are actually angled. So when this tablet is on the table, the angled sides make it easy for you to lift the tablet up. There are two USB 4 Type-C ports on the left side, and you can use the ports to charge the tablet, and they obviously can output video, and the transfer speed is really fast. I'm not sure if you can see this gap here, but there are actually fan grills inside the gap. The fan grills extend from the side to the top and to the side again. Fan noise is not audible unless you are playing games. And on the top there is the power button and volume controls. Let's talk about the beautiful display. There are two options for the display, LCD and OLED. So the OLED version is more expensive, and if I have to buy the Surface Pro 11, I will go for the LCD model because it's more affordable, relatively speaking. I don't have any preference between LCD and OLED, and actually I would prefer LCD because usually it's just more affordable. And for some reason, my Spider X2 Ultra color calibrator just cannot work with OLED displays, and that calibrator was not able to work with the Surface Pro. Having said that, Microsoft actually has color calibrated the tablets individually according to what they say on their website. So you may not have to worry about color calibration, but for me, since I work with graphic design, I have to color calibrate the display because this is not the only display that I am working with. I'm also working with external displays, and I need the colors to match. So if I cannot color calibrate this display, I cannot get the colors to match. So OLED to me is a no-go. So I have to get LCD displays. So the only downside with the LCD display is the Snapdragon Plus processor has 10 cores, and the OLED version has the Snapdragon X Elite with 12 core processor. So 10 cores versus 12 core, in my opinion, is not like that much of a difference, but the price difference is huge. One thing I don't quite like about this display is just how reflective it is. And even though the display is bright, it's not bright enough to go through the reflections. So I wish Microsoft can just put some anti-reflective coating on the tablet, because if you are working outdoors or if you are working in environments with bright lighting, reflections like this can be quite annoying. And since I cannot remember the specifications for the display, let me just read through what they have here. So the resolution is 2880 by 1920, which is good. Aspect ratio is 3:2, which is what I prefer. The PPI for this display is 267, so pixelation is not noticeable even if you look really close. So the main difference between the LCD versus the OLED, according to the specifications here, is the contrast. So the OLED display has a contrast ratio of 1,000,000 to 1, and for the LCD it's 1,200 to 1. So what does that mean? It just means that with OLED you can get true HDR, and also if you want blacks, you can get that with this display. Now, one issue with OLED displays is, and this applies to all OLED displays, personally for me, I feel like LCD displays, they look better when you're using the display at low brightness. So when using OLED displays at low brightness, for some reason, they just don't look right to me. I'm not sure whether you have experienced that yourself, but LCD to me just looks better when you're using the display at low brightness. And also with this particular OLED display, you probably won't be able to see it in this video, but there is some grain with this OLED display. And some OLED displays do have that grain, and this particular OLED display has the grain. So this is the white background, and from one arm's distance away, I don't really notice the grain. It's only when I look really close that I can see the grain. So let me switch to a different color background to let you see whether you can spot the grain. Now, if you look at the iPad forums online, you may see people complaining about the grain on their M4 iPad Pro when the background is dark or black. This grain here is actually quite similar to the grain you can find on the iPad Pro 2024. The OLED grain certainly does not affect the sharpness of the UI or the visuals. I mean, all the lines, they still look pretty sharp. There is no pixelation, there is no blur, and there is no additional grain. So if you're not looking for the grain, chances are you may not even see it. And now let's talk about the add-ons and accessories available from the ordering page. So here in Singapore, the price difference between the Wi-Fi and 5G model is 400 Singapore dollars. So that's like 25% of the cost of the Surface Pro. It's quite expensive. So if you do not need 5G, you can actually save a lot of money just by going with the Wi-Fi model and use the hotspot from your phone. And here you can choose to add Microsoft Complete for additional warranty. So you can add up to 4 years of additional warranty on top of the standard 1-year warranty. Let's go to the next page. You can get Microsoft 365, which I actually highly recommend because this will give you 1 terabyte of online storage, which you can use to back up your tablet. So in terms of value for money, Microsoft 365 family or personal, they are really worth the money, and I highly recommend you get this even if you are not buying this tablet, because this can help you back up any computer from any company. I've been using MS365 for years, and I highly recommend that. Okay, so these are the keyboard options. So Microsoft sent me this review unit, Surface Pro keyboard with slim pen, and this keyboard can be purchased without the pen. So if you need the pen, make sure the pen is included. Otherwise, you have to buy the pen separately. And there is the Surface Pro Flex keyboard with the pen, and there is also this Flex keyboard without the pen. So the difference between the Flex keyboard versus the non-Flex is the Flex keyboard is a Bluetooth keyboard. So with the Flex Bluetooth keyboard, you can actually detach the keyboard from the tablet and use it by the side like this. So when you're drawing, you can access the keyboard shortcuts by the side, and it's really convenient. And lastly, they have the normal Surface Pro keyboard without the pen storage. The keyboard cover with the pen storage can charge the pen. So when you have the pen here and the keyboard cover is attached, you can actually see the pen light up to tell you that the pen is charging. Now, if you buy this keyboard without the pen storage and you decide to buy the pen later on, you will not be able to charge the pen with the keyboard, because this keyboard cover is not designed to charge the pen, and you cannot attach this pen to the tablet to charge it by the side like the iPad or some other tablet. So if you decide to buy the pen later on, you will have to buy a separate charger for the pen. So if you know you're going to need the pen, just buy the keyboard cover with the pen storage, with the pen included, obviously. So this is the Surface Pro keyboard, the non-Flex version, the non-Bluetooth version, and this particular color is blue. Oh, I forgot to mention earlier that the Surface Pro actually comes in 4 colors. So if you want the colors to match, get the correct colors. This material, if I'm not wrong, is Alcantara, so it's textured. It's not like cloth, it's a bit more rubbery and it does feel good. However, if you look online, you may see people complaining about how the wrist area or the palm rest area can collect oil or grease. So just clean this regularly. Now the build quality for this keyboard cover is, I would say, pretty good. It's quite solid, as in if you try to bend it, there is minimal flex. Yeah, so the build quality is pretty good. The touchpad is, I would say, medium size. It works well. There is no haptic. Yeah, but it works well. The keys have good travel and feedback, so the typing experience is good. There is a function lock feature. The right control button has been replaced by the Copilot AI button, and the right control button to me is just way more useful compared to this button, which by the way is also available on the taskbar. Without the control button here, it's very difficult or not possible for you to use keyboard shortcuts for keys around this area. So let's say I want to Control O to open a file. My hand is just too small for the fingers to stretch to get these two shortcuts. And I use keyboard shortcuts a lot. So I can use Control 0 to zoom, Control O to open, Control L to lock, Control I, Control brackets, Control Shift brackets. I use a lot of keyboard shortcuts all over the keyboard, so without that control button, it is incredibly inconvenient for me to use keyboard shortcuts. To the point that if I'm using this tablet at home, I would just use another keyboard. Since this is Windows OS, you may be able to find some key mapping software to switch this key back to control, but I did not try that myself. You can hide the pen storage just by pushing the keyboard up, and the magnets will snap to the bottom. So this will also prop up the keyboard to let you type at a more inclined angle. And when typing, the tablet and the keyboard do not shake, so it's quite stable. Let's look at the Microsoft Slim Pen 2. So this design is interesting. It looks like a carpenter's pencil. So it's not cylindrical and it's not hexagonal. It's actually this flat design, which I still cannot get used to after using and testing this pen for years. I just wish they have a cylindrical version of the pen. So this pen has built-in battery, so you need to charge the pen. This pen uses Bluetooth to connect to the tablet, and once you put this into the pen storage area on the keyboard cover, it would pair and charge automatically. There is one side button here with good feedback, another button at the back also with good feedback, so you can actually hear the buttons when you press them. And this back button also works as an eraser. Build quality of this pen is quite solid and it's not too heavy or light. I like the matte textured surface, which feels really nice. Now this pen I would say is comfortable to hold, it's just that I cannot get used to the design. And this is tapered, so you can actually tilt the pen to get tilt sensitivity to work. And this pen tip is, I would say, matte textured as well. And there is almost no movement when it's in contact with the drawing surface. So this pen tip is replaceable if it does get worn out. This pen supports tilt and pressure sensitivity, but I cannot remember how many levels of pressure sensitivity, and it supports palm rejection as well. So to customize this pen, you can open the pre-installed Microsoft Surface app, and this app will show you the connected devices such as the keyboard and the pen and the pen's battery life. I do not know what's the battery life of this pen, like how long it can last, but you don't have to worry about battery life if you always keep the pen in the pen storage when you're not using the pen. So let's tap here and tap here. So this is where you can customize the pen pressure. There is no pressure curve to adjust, so you have to use this slider to adjust the pressure. So if you have it set at light, this will let you draw thin lines more easily, and if you have it at heavy, it will let you draw thick lines more easily. I like to have it at 3 or 4. Yeah, so this works for me. And you can adjust the pressure curve with certain drawing apps as well. So this is the pressure curve, but you cannot adjust it manually, unfortunately. And under Windows settings, under Bluetooth and devices, pen and Windows Ink options, you can customize the side buttons. You may be able to customize the side buttons depending on the drawing app you use, and sometimes the shortcuts may interfere, so you may have to turn off the shortcuts here and use the shortcuts from your drawing app. And under additional pen settings, you can choose to show the cursor, and here you can enable palm rejection. You can choose to ignore touch input or choose to ignore your hand when you're using the pen. So let me just enable this. So as I am writing these letters, I can feel the pen vibration, but it still feels weird because you know you're drawing on this smooth glass surface and there is vibration. It just feels weird. So this pen actually glides on the glass surface quite smoothly, but it's not slippery. So if you want good control, you can actually get good control. So as I draw the lines separately and join them together, I am able to stop the line to prevent the line from overshooting, and I can join the lines properly without gaps. So you do get some control even though the pen tip is gliding quite smoothly on the glass. And this display is laminated, so there is no gap between the display and the pen tip. So as I draw this line, you can see there is no gap between the cursor and the pen tip. So it really looks like the line is coming out from beneath the pen tip, and you can see slight diagonal line wobble or jitter here, unfortunately. Now latency performance is pretty good. Some drawing apps have updated to take advantage of the higher refresh rate. This app is Medibank Paint Pro, which usually has noticeable latency, but here it actually looks pretty good. Oops, I cannot undo. So not all drawing apps will support multi-finger shortcuts. This app does not support double finger undo, but it does support zoom, pan, and rotate. And most drawing apps or graphic design apps will support these 3 navigation shortcuts. But when it comes to double tap, 2-finger tap to undo, 3-finger tap to redo, and additional finger shortcuts, that will really depend on the app you are using. And also, sometimes you may be able to customize the finger gesture shortcuts. For example, with Windows, if you swipe down with 3 fingers, you actually go to the desktop, and if you swipe up, you will get this the app windows. And sometimes it may conflict with the shortcuts from the drawing apps. For example, with Concepts, I can use 2-finger to undo, 3 fingers to redo, but it's interfering with the Windows shortcut. So if I want to use 3 fingers here with Concepts, I have to disable 3 fingers with Windows. Time for the line test. Let me show you the 6 line tests that I usually do. So this is how thick the brush is, and let me try and draw thin lines by using minimal pressure, and I can do so, I would say, quite easily. So the initial activation force of this pen is actually quite low. So if you want to use this pen to create quick hatching lines like this, you can actually get the lines to look really thin. Let's look at the slow diagonal lines. So this is about as straight as I can make this diagonal line to be. I can see slight jitter, but it's not too bad. Now, how much jitter or wobble there is sometimes will depend on the app you're using. So this is actually pretty good. I can see slight jitter. And by pretty good, I mean pretty good by Microsoft standards. If you compare this with other pens, you will see the difference. So you can see slight jitter there. Yeah, let me switch over to Clip Studio. This is CSP, and this is the diagonal line wobble test. I'm trying to draw this as slow as I can. There is slight jitter, but it's actually not too bad. However, sometimes the drawing test may not actually give you the same experience when you are actually drawing something. Next, let's look at how lines taper. So I am not able to get the lines to taper smoothly and sharply. You can see some of the tapers are quite abrupt, and this is almost rounded off. Let me switch over to Clip Studio again. And you can see this is quite abrupt as well. And this first line has the shoelace effect. Yeah. So let me increase the brush size to something even larger. Yeah. Okay, this is what I'm looking for, but it's very difficult to get this. Most of the time you'll get lines like this with the rounded end. So I'm back to Medibank Paint. So if you're drawing hair, for example, and you want the hair to taper, it's difficult to get hair to taper smoothly and sharply. Yeah, it's just difficult with this pen. Let's look at line transition from thin to thick. This is looking good. As in, I can get thin lines after drawing thick lines. Now if we take a closer look, you can see diagonal line wobble, and I was drawing with, I would say, moderate speed, so it should be smooth, but you can see slight diagonal line wobble. Yeah, so this is an issue. So this pen is actually quite sensitive because it can draw thin lines after thick lines. There are actually pens with advertised like 8K or 16K, I think 8K pen pressure. But when you try to draw with those pens, you can draw thick lines, but when you try to draw thin lines, this is pretty much the thinnest you can go with some of those pens, which is not good, because if you want to draw thin lines, you should be able to draw thin lines like this. This is the true test of how good pen pressure is with pens, and this Slim Pen 2 does have really good pressure sensitivity. Next, let's see how well we can maintain pressure to draw lines with consistent thickness. And this is, I would say, pretty good. But again, you can see slight diagonal line wobble, which is not that noticeable earlier on when I showed you the diagonal line test. Okay, I can see slight wobble now, which is more obvious. Yeah, but when you're drawing, sometimes it's just more obvious. Test number 5, drawing dots, looks fine. And test number 6 is for cursor misalignment. So I'm drawing the lines separately, and then I join the lines to see whether I can join the lines without leaving gaps, and whether the lines will overshoot, and I don't have those two problems here. And even if I tilt the pen very low, you can see the cursor does not stray away from the pen tip. No issues using the scroll bars at the extreme edge or the drop menu. Let's look at tilt sensitivity. This app is Photoshop, and I have this textured brush. Tilt is not enabled by default, so let me go into the brush settings to enable pen tilt. So let me close this and undo, because Photoshop actually does not support two-finger undo. I have to use undo like this, which is incredibly inconvenient. Otherwise, I will have to use my keyboard. Okay, so let's see. So as I turn the pen, the cursor does not follow the direction of the pen. And depending on the app you use, you can actually have the cursor show the brush texture. So if I try to draw like this, you can see the brush stroke actually follows the direction of the pen. Let's do this and this, yeah. So if I draw like this, if I drag the pen like this, I get the thin strokes. If I use the broad side like this, I get the broad strokes. So tilt actually works. It's just that the cursor unfortunately does not follow the direction of the pen, even though the brush stroke can do that. And this happens with Krita as well. And now let's talk about drawing experience. Yeah, so maybe I will try and draw this. Let's draw. And the app I'm using is Medibang Paint Pro. So let me just create some guidelines as well. So this 13-inch size is actually great to work with. You can have space for palettes on the left and right side and still get a good amount of canvas space to work with. And this is how big an A4 piece of paper is. So the physical size of the tablet is actually about as big as the A4 paper. So the display size is slightly smaller. So this is a good size to work with. I can draw the thin lines well enough. Yeah, but as I draw the curve here, you can see, let me just undo, and I cannot undo because this app does not support the double finger undo. Let me just redraw this line. Yeah, it's, can you see that? Can you see the wobble? So usually when you draw faster, the line will be smoother, and yeah, it is smoother if I draw faster. But the thing is, sometimes you want to draw slower because you want the extra control. But when you draw slower, there is the diagonal line wobble. Let's draw the eye here. Let's zoom in closer. So I can get this thin line here, which is nice. So if you are into quick sketching, being able to draw thin lines like that is pretty nice. Feels great. Let's have the, oops. So I keep using the gesture shortcuts, which is actually not an issue because after you use the app for a while, you will get used to the workflow. So here, not having the undo is not really an issue. Besides, this is Windows, so usually when I'm drawing, I'm using keyboard shortcuts. Like the original art is created by Sergio Toppi, who is an amazing illustrator. Yeah. So even when I'm copying the style, it's not possible for me to even come close to the actual art. So here you can see I am able to create the darker values. Now the brush that I'm using is actually quite thick. It's this thick, so I am drawing with minimal pressure right now to get the thin lines, and the pressure sensitivity for this pen is really good. So you can definitely draw thin lines easily. See this thin line here? You can draw thin lines very easily. No issues with the tapering strokes here, which is why earlier I said that sometimes the line test will not truly reflect the actual drawing experience. Now if you use Clip Studio, you can actually have a lot of brush adjustments. For example, earlier on I said that you cannot taper the line properly. Now with Clip Studio, you can actually adjust the brush settings to help you taper the line more easily. But not with this app, Medibang Paint. Okay, I'm trying to draw one continuous line here rather than draw one line here and then try to join the line, which is not that smooth. But I am able to join the line like this because the cursor is very accurate. So where I'm pointing the pen tip is where the line will appear. So if you draw separate lines, you can actually join them very easily because the pen is accurate. The cursor, there is no cursor misalignment. So as I taper the line here, you can see this is where there are some issues. I wasn't able to get the lines to taper smoothly and sharply. But here at the top, I am able to do so. So what's the difference? The difference is as I draw the lines here, I'm actually not like lifting it up. I'm just drawing slowly. But here, if I draw quick and have the pen lift up suddenly, yeah, it's going to look like this. You're going to end with a rounded end. For this sketch, there is no obvious diagonal line because these are all curves. If you're drawing things like angular objects, buildings, for example, then you may see the problem with diagonal lines. And later I will draw that. Let me just switch to the eraser. For the eraser, you have to use, it's probably easier to just switch to the eraser and adjust the size. So this is a 10-point eraser. Yeah, this is a 10-point eraser. So this will allow me to erase the line more easily like this. But this eraser, okay, now it's using the 10-point eraser. Let me just undo here and go back to the brush. So here I'm using the brush, which is 59 points. And I'm drawing with the 59-point brush. And if I switch to the eraser, this is also a 59-point eraser. So this eraser button is not that useful. Okay, so wow, this drawing from Sergio Toppi is really detailed. I need to erase here. But as you can see, it's really convenient, but it's not a very precise eraser. To get a precise eraser, you have to use the actual eraser too. So depending on the type of art you do, yes, I would say you can definitely create professional art with this pen, depending on the art you do. I have some issues with diagonal lines. You can see the wobble here. Palm rejection works quite well, so I can have my palm on the display and just draw like this. If I draw a bit faster, yeah, I can get the lines to look smooth, but as mentioned earlier, sometimes you want to draw slower for more control, and that is where it's kind of difficult to get the straighter lines. And also I sort of see that there are some issues with maintaining consistent pressure. Yeah. So it's actually kind of difficult to review this pen. It is not easy to review the pen. So I can see some pressure inconsistency here as well. And you can see the hair that does not taper smoothly and sharply. So my drawing is nowhere close to the original. And now let's draw something angular. So I'm going to draw a truck. It's a very simple truck with many diagonal lines, just so that you can see whether there is any diagonal line wobble issue. Now this app concepts is actually quite forgiving, as in if your lines are not that straight, it will apply some software correction to sort of smoothen out the line, even though I did not apply any smoothing. Let me use the side button here to select these two objects, lock, and switch to the eraser here, just to erase. Okay, looks good. Yeah, let's draw more diagonal lines. So this is a steep diagonal line, looks pretty straight. I can see slight wobble of this, probably due to my technique. So let me turn this. You know what? Actually, I shouldn't do that. I should still continue to draw this as a diagonal line. Because if you turn the tablet like this and you draw, you're actually drawing a straight line, a vertical line. Lines are relatively straight, but if you look close, there is slight jitter, but it's not the pattern jitter. Pattern jitter is something like this, where it's very predictable. And this is the iPad Pro with the Apple Pencil. And as I draw a few lines, I can immediately tell the diagonal lines are straighter. Yeah. Okay, there is slight wobble here. Maybe slight wobble. But sometimes the wobble actually comes from your hand pressure, the amount of pressure that you apply, which is what makes hand-drawn art look more charming. But sometimes the wobble can be due to the pen performance. I do feel like the lines look more natural. And this is the same performance you will get with the Samsung S Pen as well. Let's switch back to the Surface Pro. So that's how fast the face unlock is. The feel is definitely different. The feel of the pen is definitely different when you're drawing with the pen, with the different pens. By the way, this app also supports tilt, so I can actually tilt the pen to get broad strokes like this, which can help me color more quickly. If you look close, I guess, yeah, you may see slight diagonal line wobble. As to whether this will affect your work, really comes down to the type of art you create. I think the main issue with this pen really comes down to how the lines taper. By the way, this taskbar here, it's minimized because the tablet is in tablet mode, but you can choose to disable it. So Medibank Paint and Clip Studio Paint are the X64 versions, so they have to run through emulation on this tablet, which is using the ARM or ARM architecture, and I don't really see any performance degradation. So the performance is really good for drawing. There is no lag whatsoever. So it's just, I mean, the performance that will affect you will come from the pen, not from the hardware of the tablet. If you are using Adobe Creative Cloud, I want to show you what are the apps that are available for installation and which apps are not available. So Photoshop is available, Illustrator is not. This Lightroom is the online version. This is not Lightroom Classic, and the features for Lightroom Online and Lightroom Classic are different. Adobe Premiere Pro is the 2023 version with bugs, and this is the 2024 version is not available yet. There is no Adobe InDesign. There is Adobe Fresco, and yeah, so those are the apps that I would be interested in. So do not buy this tablet thinking that Adobe is going to release their apps soon, because they may take years to release the ARM version of Illustrator or Lightroom Classic. Let's look at battery life. So I've been using this tablet non-stop for almost 4 hours now, and the battery life has depleted by 50%. It was 98% in the morning and now it's 45%, so it dropped 53%. This display is using auto brightness, which works really well, and for this morning the display brightness is around 80%, so I was able to get 4 hours of use with 50% battery life at 80% brightness. So if I'm drawing non-stop, based on my calculations, I can get around 8 to 10 hours of battery life. If I'm just surfing the web watching YouTube videos, 12 to 15 hours easily. So the battery life for this tablet is really good. The last thing I want to talk about is Copilot and AI features. which Microsoft is advertising, and the PR that sent over this review unit told me to talk about, hey, check out the AI features, let your audience know how good they are, how useful they are. I don't find the AI features to be that useful. That's the truth. So there is this Copilot button here, which I already told you is not as useful compared to the control button. Anyway, it's there. The Copilot button is also there, so I don't see why they need to have two buttons. So when you press the button, this Copilot app will launch, and it works just like a search engine. So you can ask a question. So let's say I want to visit Bangkok, Thailand. So I'm going to create a 5-day itinerary for my Bangkok trip. Yeah, the thing with this AI feature is you can actually go to your web browser, just do a search for Copilot Bing, B-I-N-G, which is Microsoft's search engine. Click here, and this is pretty much the same thing as the app you just saw. So you don't actually need to buy a device to use Copilot. Yeah, but this is just one of the many features of Copilot. Yeah, so it works sort of like a search engine. Let's look at how Copilot is used for creating AI art, which I know many people dislike. But we shall see how good or bad it is. So Copilot can be used in Microsoft Paint. So let's do a search for Paint. So this is Microsoft Paint, and the AI feature is called Co-Creator. So you can enable or disable Co-Creator. So what you can do here is you can draw something, and you can also describe what you are trying to draw, and the AI will try to generate that image based on your drawing and also the text prompt. Let's say I am a blogger and I'm writing about miscommunication. So maybe I want to have a chicken talking to a duck. An illustration. I want to create an illustration to represent miscommunication. So as I type in the text prompt here and I press enter, nothing happens because in addition to just writing the text here, I also have to draw. Oops. Let's select the brush. So this is the first problem. Not everyone knows how to draw. So let's try and draw a chicken. Let's say you're very bad at drawing a chicken and your chicken looks like this. So AI will try to, turn this into a chicken. It's not too bad. Next, let's draw a duck because we want the chicken to talk to the duck. So let's have a duck by the side. Let's have some feet. Let's maybe have the chicken spread the wings. Okay, you can see the chicken spreading a wing there. But this is definitely not a duck. So let's try and add the beak here to turn it into a duck. Can I? Oops. It looks like I did not enable palm rejection. So let me just undo. Or is there palm rejection with this app? I'm actually not too sure. So this does not look like a duck at all. Let's use this. Let's draw the eyes for the duck. Anyway, after the image has been generated, you can tap on the AI image and this will replace your main image. And this does not look like a duck at all. The chicken looks okay, I guess. But as you can see, the quality of the image, as in how accurate the image looks compared to an actual real-life object, a chicken and a duck, the quality is not really that. Yeah, and also maybe if I really want to have them talk, I may add some speech bubble there, but that would mean I have to draw, and if I do not know how to draw, then how can I create an image of a chicken talking to a duck? Yeah, so I don't find this to be very useful, as in I don't really see any practical use for the type of work that I do. Yeah, maybe you can find some way to use the AI creation features, but if you're really thinking of buying this tablet for AI, I would ask you to ask yourself whether this can fit into your workflow, rather than buy something and then design your workflow to use AI. Yeah. And also when I look at technology, I just look at it from a very practical point of view. Is it going to help me save time and save money, or earn money? So in this case, I'm not sure how this is going to help me save time. I mean, compared to me going online to search for a picture of a chicken talking to a duck, which may be copyrighted, this is copyright free. So I guess it helps me save time, but the thing is the end product is not really what I'm looking at. And this is just one example. I can create multiple examples and try and create a prompt and create a drawing, but the thing is I'm pretty sure it's not going to work well. So many of the advertising videos that you see online with Microsoft Advertising Copilot, those are very controlled examples. I hate to say this, but it is what it is. I think it's not ready yet. There are some AI art programs from other companies that are doing really spectacular work, but for Microsoft's AI program, AI art generator or co-creator, there is still a long way to, there's still a lot of room for improvement. Alright, to conclude, is the Surface Pro 11 worth the money? Well, this is a pretty difficult question for me to answer. The price of this tablet is actually similar to the Microsoft Surface laptop, which comes with the keyboard. So when you add the Surface Pro keyboard with the pen storage, with the pen, it is actually noticeably more expensive compared to the Surface laptop. So maybe you can get the Surface laptop and buy a separate tablet. And by a separate tablet, I mean iPad, Samsung tablet or Xiaomi tablet just for drawing. I don't mean those pen displays or pen tablets that you have to connect to the laptop. So it's this all-in-one package versus buying a laptop and a tablet separately. So the main selling point here is this is the all-in-one device. You can use it as a tablet, you can use it as a laptop, you can draw on it. The drawing performance does have some limitations as mentioned earlier, and also Microsoft is in the transition period from Intel to ARM. So you have to make sure that the apps you need to use are actually available. Yeah, that would be the most important thing you should research on, whether your app is available before you buy this. So as to whether this is worth the money, well, you guys can decide and let me know in the comment section below.